Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Asana Cayetano. Good morning.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
We're on the tail end of a very restful and relaxing weekend after a rather stressful week
a
last
long week. Yeah.
I'm well rested and good to go for this week, Marlene. Yourself?
That's right. Definitely was time for catch up with some rest. And I know some people may be struggling, but it is the start of the work week. So please wake up and let us tell you what the weather is going to be like for today. We have Francisca on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you doing?
We're good.
We are
thanks.
great. After a 3-day weekend, we feel refreshed to get the week started.
That's good to hear.
So tell us about the weather. Will that also be refreshing?
Okay, then. Just a little history. We had a cold front. It didn't cross us. It moved east of us, but we still saw a little bit of the effects of it, the cloudiness. And the flow is northeasterly right now. It's relatively moist. So we had a little bit of rain, light rain over the country over the weekend. And I'm seeing the same thing for the next 24 to 48 hours. But what I'm seeing is that it's affecting mostly central areas, like mostly Maya Mountains and some southern areas, and I'm seeing that continuing for the next 2 days.
Okay.
So that was we will see sunshine, we'll see some times cloudiness, and just that little bit of rain.
So that was the cool breeze that we felt yesterday morning when we woke up with the cloudy skies?
That's right.
All right. And so for a 24-hour forecast?
Okay, so we'll be seeing a few cloudy spells, and we'll be seeing a few showers or periods of rain, mainly over central and southern areas.
And the winds?
Okay, the winds, that's the concern. As I said, it's from the northeast, 10 to 20 knots with some higher gusts, and it's producing waves of 6 to 9 feet. So we are saying that the seas will be rough, and we have a small crop warning in effect.
Okay. And what about our temperatures?
Okay, for this afternoon, we're seeing 81 Fahrenheit along the coast, 85 inland, 72 in the Maya Mountains. That's pretty cool. And then overnight temperatures, 74 along the coast, 64 inland, and 60 up in the Maya Mountains.
And any changes in the next few days?
Okay, by Friday, Saturday, we'll be seeing a decrease in shower activity, so I'm seeing temperatures warming up by that time.
Okay, so for tomorrow and the day after, we'll still be seeing some lingering showers?
A little bit, just a little bit.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that update.
Okay, Marlene.
Have a great day.
Thanks, and same to you.
No, by and large, the weather has been excellent this past weekend. It's what we call Easter weather, right?
Yeah.
It's windy, just the right amount of sunlight.
Yeah. And yesterday was really, it did rain for a bit, but it was also nice to kind of just have that cool air come in early in the morning, and it warmed up by afternoon. All right, we're going to keep things moving this morning, and it means it's time for our Eye Opener. And our Eye Opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. Many people are very different from ourselves, and coming to a place of acceptance can make the road easier. All people have their own way of being in the world. It is easiest to comprehend this basic yet profound fact when we consider that every human being on the planet occupies a distinct role in the universe. We grow up in different environments, affected by a unique range of influences. The preferences, values, and beliefs we are frequently related intimately to our origins. the preferences, values, and beliefs we embrace are frequently related intimately to our origins. And the need to individualize our experiences is instinctive, as doing so enables us to cope when we must face challenges on our own. Consequently, each of us has developed a perspective that is uniquely ours. Interacting peacefully and constructively with people from all walks of life is a matter of first understanding where they're coming from. Then we can adjust our expectations so that we avoid making undue assumptions about what they're about. It is likely that you will never fully grasp the myriad of complexities embodied by humanity, but you can go a long way toward encouraging mutually satisfying relations by reaching out to others in the spirit of sympathetic comprehension.
I look at the broad picture of acceptance as the point where I'd begin my reflection on today's eye-opener. I could recall, perhaps I was 13 years old. I appeared in a documentary called The Garifuna Journey, all right? And when I look back at one particular statement that I made in that interview that I had given, where I, at 13 years old, had accepted the fact that, you know, my friends and my relationships and my families are so diverse that it's a matter of being able to accept people individually for who they are in a broader context of perhaps their race, their ethnicity, and what have you. And that applies across the board, even if you're talking about their religious or spiritual backgrounds, their sexual preferences, whatever it is, right? And so the point that I'm making is, once you're able to accept people for who they are, it's the beginning of that journey that you will embark upon with them, right? Being able to do so allows you to be able to understand where they're coming from, and it hinges upon where you come from as well. Because if you come from a background where, for instance, your family teaches you to accept others, teaches you to see the world beyond only what you're seeing in front of you, then it opens your mind up to be able to interact with different people, because their influences as well are varied, right? So when you look at it from a universal point of view, so to speak, it's the idea of, once you're able to accept that you yourself are different and you are seeking the acceptance of others around you, then that level of reciprocity begins there. You have to be able to accept people for who they are as well. I think that's the greatest takeaway from the eye-opener.
And just, you know, driving that point home, that we are all unique individuals. Your mother and father are unique, and they raised you differently than other parents across the world, and right here within your own community and your country and your city. You know, you've had life experiences that have helped to shape you in some way, shape, or form. You've had disappointments or failures or triumphs that mold you into who you are. I think, you know, when you just take a deeper look at a person that's in front of you, and you can recognize that they come with a whole new perspective of the world that you can be exposed to if you only allow yourself to be open enough to accept it.
Marlene, when you look at human interaction, right, we're only as open to what we're prepared to expose ourselves to, or what we've been exposed to, right? So if you, for instance, go to a co-ed school where you have boys and girls from all strata of society, right? And they bring to the classroom their own experiences at home, in their community, and what have you, and then you do the same. And in running around and playing in the schoolyard, you start to understand, wow, this is my unique place in this entire picture that is being painted. And so when you make friends, they too bring their own uniqueness and their vast experiences to the table. And that's where the whole idea of socialization comes about.
Yeah, and it just broadens your perspective of the world and people around you. I mean, sometimes we tend to be attracted to people who have similar beliefs or
Yeah.
values or upbringing.
Yeah.
But when you kind of have a broad range of people that you can be very open with and interact with, it really just changes your understanding as you meet new people. Because you can recognize that some people are just going to be vastly different from what you are, who you are, and what you believe, and that's okay.
And that's part of, you know, the melting pot that the world is, being able to accept that everybody else is not like you, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got to get moving into the rest of our show, and it is a Tuesday morning, but of course it's the first day of the work week. So we're going to be taking a look at some of the big stories coming out from over the weekend and some that we're looking forward to in the week ahead. So let's shift gears to Eye on the News.
So we're on the tail end of an extended weekend, right? And so a lot has transpired over the past 3 days. I want to begin first by discussing the narco-trafficking activities that continue to plague our little country. Over the weekend, there were 2 landings of suspected drug planes, one in the northern part of the country in the Blue Creek area of Orange Walk District, and the other in the southern part of the country near Placencia. And while it is that there are persons who were arrested in connection with the Blue Creek landing, the landing of the aircraft in Placencia also raises similar questions of, you know, the purpose, if I may, of the aircraft landing in that particular area, and who may have either aided and abetted the pilot and whichever occupants were in the aircraft and whatever cargo there was and what have you. Now, for some time we have known, and there has been sufficient proof of the fact that Belize is the transshipment point of choice, if you may, for drug trafficking that comes from South America, as these illicit cargoes are en route to the United States, where it's the largest market for narcotics, right? And while it is that our authorities in some instances work very diligently with their counterparts in the region to be able to track these aircrafts flying through our airspace, not all of them are intercepted in time, so to speak. And so in the case of the aircraft in Placencia, there weren't necessarily any cargo found on board the aircraft, which would give one the impression that it may have been successfully offloaded, and whatever content there was has been moved on to its next location. In Blue Creek, like I mentioned earlier, there were persons who were arrested in connection with the aircraft. Again, this may not necessarily, there weren't any drugs found on the aircraft itself, but the fact that they did not have authority to be in Belizean airspace, and the aircraft, it is believed, its flight, I should say, originated from Mexico, then it raised certain questions of the activities in connection with the landing itself. So the Belize Police Department, and of course all of its counterparts in the effort against drug trafficking through the country, has its work cut out in terms of trying to investigate those landings. That's the first thing I wanted to touch on this morning.
Yeah. No, definitely big news over the weekend, I think, as we saw one, then the second one being reported on. And it really, I know that the police will probably have a press conference today to be able to give more information that they have gathered from their investigation so far. But it is an ongoing challenge. There has been the Joint Intelligence Group that's been working together, and we know that we had been told previously that they communicate very closely with security forces in neighboring countries to kind of track what's happening. I know there was talk of a radar to kind of be able to pinpoint exactly where the activity is going, but clearly the work that we've been doing does require additional resources as well. I know in the last case of the drug plane landing, the one that you went to cover,
Yeah.
they said they knew that it was over airspace, but being able to get there in time is a different story.
And the thing with these narco traffickers is that while Belize is small, there is enough area, so to speak, where they can land an aircraft, and the response time perhaps for the authorities would be a little kind of, difficult in terms of them being able to get there at that exact point in time. So all of that is being played upon.
And I know, and I do want to make a note, because I think we also have to be aware of the fact that when there have been arrests, it is not unique. It has happened in several cases where people who are members of the police or defense forces have been arrested in the process.
Yeah.
We were told by the commissioner, and I believe the minister as well has made the same point, that they would do what they can to weed out the persons who are involved in this type of activity, because we know there's coordination taking place on the ground, period.
It has to be.
So it's a matter of investigating that thoroughly, and also ensuring that the people who are involved in tracking or potentially intercepting are also not involved.
So, okay, that was the first point that I wanted to touch on. Over the weekend as well, and this has to do with the ongoing pandemic situation and how Belize fits into the picture of its fight against COVID as well. So over the weekend, more so yesterday, a second shipment of COVID-19 vaccine landed in country, where it was met by foreign affairs officials as well as those from the Ministry of Health, as well as the Indian community, for vaccines that will now be administered to certain classes of our population, Marlene. And so this, as I mentioned, rounds out the second shipment of COVID-19 vaccines to the country. You have some information that perhaps can be shared in terms of who these individuals are that will be the recipients of this second round?
Well, as we've reported before, I think one of the things that we do have to be clear about is that the first two batches of vaccinations that we've received so far, the first 1,000, and now there's 25,000, are actually donations that have been made to the country. We're still awaiting the allocation from the COVAX facility, which is supposed to be a larger sum of, a larger number of doses that will be coming in. But this is such a great, this is such a great step for us in being able to roll out the phased implementation of the vaccination. As we see that the representatives from the Indian community were there as well. This is something that we are able to benefit from based on bilateral relations in having our foreign ministry work to be able to secure the donation. So I know collectively we're all very grateful for that. So the 25 doses, as far as we know, the last update from the Ministry of Health, I think it was somewhere around 1,000 people that have been vaccinated so far. And that means that most of the first donation should have been exhausted. This one now will continue with the rollout. We do have reports that they are moving into the entire phase of phase 1. So that included, at first it was healthcare and frontline workers. And then subsequently it moves into persons who are over 60 years. We have this notice here from San Ignacio Hospital, that is, where persons over 60 and healthcare workers are allowed to go in to the hospital to get their first dose of the vaccine. It's people with special conditions, HIV, cancer, and dialysis. So that's one of the things that we're starting to see, that people beyond healthcare workers are starting to receive the vaccine. The notice currently from the Ministry of Health is that you can check and see if you are registered, if you fit within this vulnerable population. There's a hotline that you can call, the Ministry of Health hotline, to be able to find out if you're registered. I know especially if you're on NHI, you would be in the system already, but if you're not, it doesn't, it's very helpful to double check and ensure that you are on the list so that you can eventually go and access your vaccine.
So it's just a reiteration that this particular donation comes from the government of India, right? Through our relations with them via the Foreign Affairs Ministry. So that is where we are insofar as the second donation of COVID-19 vaccines, right? And so the third topic that I wanted to touch on, without preempting what we will be discussing in the latter part of our show this morning, is the ongoing conversation of the proposed 10% salary cuts for public officers. On Friday, we got wind of a letter that was written by the financial secretary to the Public Service Union, the Association of Public Service Senior Managers as well, and of course to the Belize National Teachers Union. And of course, these are only three of the bodies or the organizations, if I may, that will be affected should this proposed 10% tax cut come in, 10% salary cut come into force. All right, and so the overall picture, as far as we understand, is that the Briceño administration is trying to realize $240 million in savings by reducing the wages of public officers over a 3-year period. And this also has to do with a freeze in increments and benefits over the same period of time, right? And so when you look at the salary cut and you look at the freeze in total, it comes up to $240 million. Now, this has sparked a round of consultations within these respective organizations, right? So that the PSU has been busy meeting with its membership. As a matter of fact, a survey is currently out in terms of its members responding as to how they feel about this proposal from the government of Belize. And the APSSM has also been meeting with its own people in terms of formulating a position.
The BNTU has also issued a survey to their members too, getting their, trying to get their feedback on the proposal.
Yeah, and the overall picture being painted here, Marlene, is the fact that we are in a very difficult situation in terms of the economy, and so the government is doing its best to try to see how it can be able to curtail on some of its expenses, including the wage bill. But you will accept as well, or appreciate for that matter, the fact that the Public Service Union has long come forward from the time that this was being discussed in the previous administration. They were saying, well, look, let's look at other areas in which we can realize the monies that government needs to be able to continue its operations. And one of those recommendations was to be able to go harder on revenue collection, right? They're saying, well, look, let's look at specific areas in which we can boost being able to collect revenue for the public purse, so to speak. And so that they have stood behind that steadfastly. And that is also another counter proposal that is being put forward. I'll leave that there because, like I said, I don't really want to go too much into what will be discussed later on in the show.
Yeah, we are going to be joined by representatives of some of the unions to talk about this further.
So that is the general picture being painted. Again, there is just the reminder that in the days ahead, we will be expecting the budget for the 2021 fiscal year to be presented, right? As the government of Belize, led by Prime Minister John Briceño, is tightening up all the loose ends in terms of what will be presented in Parliament and then what will later be debated before it goes into force on April 1st. So that is the picture that is being painted in terms of what we are looking at over the past few days, what we're looking at this week, and what we can expect further down the road, right? So again, details of these stories and more, you can catch us live at 6 o'clock on News 5, or you can stream our content on Facebook. That does it for the Eye on the News.
All right, and as we mentioned earlier, our first conversation for today is going to be following up with representatives of the unions. We're going to be joined by a representative of the Public Service Union as well as the Association of Public Service Senior Managers about the way forward. They'll tell us a bit about the ongoing consultations when it comes to the proposed salary cuts.
Our third segment, which is our second conversation, is a topic on issues that women are faced with on a daily basis: expected caregivers, physical abuse, and struggles to move up the ranks in the workplace. So that will be our third segment, as we are in Women's Month. So
and yesterday was International Women's Day.
There we go. So that's what we're looking forward to in our show this morning.
Okay. And we're going to go ahead and take a break. But before we do, we got a birthday shout out. And today we're saying happy birthday to
two persons, Marlene. We're saying happy birthday, first of all, to Kiana Perez. And we're also saying happy birthday to Alana Luna. Happy birthday, guys.
So we'll take that break, and when we come back, we'll start talking with the unions about how the consultations are going. So please, stay tuned.
It's a fact that you can access unlimited services with Smart. Tired of being measured or cut off when you need to be connected? It's a fact that when you sign up for Smart's Plus plan, you get unlimited talk, text, and unlimited data. And it's a fact that you can sign up with your group of up to 5 members for Smart's Share plans and up to 40 members for Smart's Enterprise plans for unlimited talk, text, and data. Smart has the true unlimited plans. That's a fact. Be smart and live smart.
In these challenging times, the one thing that is certain is that the Belize Bank Limited is here for you. There is nothing more important than your health and safety, and we continue to make every effort to make banking safer for you. Our staff is working around the clock to make sure you can do your banking conveniently 24/7 using our mobile banking app and online banking and keeping ATMs up and running. We value your relationship with us and are here to provide the support you need. First responders are also out there 24/7. Thank you, healthcare workers, security forces, firefighters, caregivers. You are all appreciated. Stay safe. We will get through this together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
And welcome back. As we mentioned prior to our first commercial break, the topic we're now going to get into has to do with the proposed salary cuts for the next 3 years that government has put forward for the unions for the public service. That being said, we have with us the president of the Association of Public Service Senior Managers, Magistrate Sharon Fraser. We also have the president of the Public Service Union, Gerald Henry. Good morning, folks.
Good morning, Marilyn and Isani.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so let's begin with what took place on Thursday. I understand that there was a meeting with the joint unions on Thursday between yourselves and the financial secretary and several of the other persons appointed by Prime Minister Briceño to lead the consultation on this particular issue. Share with us perhaps some details of that particular meeting that was held on Thursday, which led to the letter that was put forward the day after. Maybe we can begin with yourself, Mr. Henry.
Okay. Thank you very much, Isani. I was not at the meeting, and I had sent 2 representatives to that meeting now. But essentially, from what I got back from representatives, of course, the main topics was the salary cut and the essentially what came out in the letter that we had asked that they formalize the topics or the discussions in that letter that came out. So essentially, those were the things that were discussed: the reduction in the staff, in staffing salaries, continued freeze on the increments and other benefits. So it's essentially those things that government would seek to assist public officers and in deferring or relaxing some of their mortgages, by way of the DFC and the National Bank. So when you read the letter that came out, it pretty much gives you the essence of what was discussed, no?
Yeah.
Without going into details, I don't know if Sister Fraser wants to add anything there.
Well, yes, because it was a 4-hour meeting, so clearly a lot of things were discussed. And I hear people keep on saying about the salary cut, the salary cut, the salary cut. At no point in that meeting was any decision given to us that there was a salary cut, there would be a salary cut. There are proposals that were put to us for consideration and for consultation. So I don't know, the way I'm hearing people discussing all of this, it's like it's a done deal, and that is what is going to happen. That is not what took place at that meeting. I must tell you that for the most part, just to add to what Brother Henry said, is that it was more of us sharing additional things that the government could do before the consideration of salary cut or the freezing of increments. And thereafter, it was if that, it leads to that. That is after all the consideration of everything else. Then the issue was looking at how government could assist in lessening the burden if you are going to take away salaries from public officers. I will tell you that one of the things that was put forward by both PSU and APSSM was, rather than a 10% cross the top, that in fact maybe a staggered approach could be considered if it is we reach there, because we're not yet conceding to any of that. What would be the ultimate results would be after consultation and hopefully after some more discussion with the representatives of government, and ultimately what would come out of Ministry of Finance. So that a lot of things were discussed, lots of things, including how to plug up holes. And I want to say that even way before this particular administration and under the past administration, not even the end, even before that, the unions, and more specifically the APSSM and PSU, had put together members, including that of representative of government, of two committees, the cost saving and the revenue enhancement. That has been in place a long time. In fact, the cost savings committee has come up with at least about 3 reports. We are still waiting to find out what is the result. I know some of the measures have been implemented. The funny thing about it is that it has gone so long that people even forgot about the fact that part of our negotiation was that if we're able to find savings, that we should have also benefited from that savings, that is public officers. Revenue enhancement, also a report was given to government on how to enhance revenue, and we're still talking about how to enhance revenue. I know, for example, one of the representatives, Brother Sheehan from PSU, spoke about point of contact machines being placed in the sense of a GST, because we're losing money there, and examples were given, things that can happen immediately that could see enhancement of revenue, which then means government would have to borrow less to pay public officers. At the end of the day, we acknowledge that in fact there is a deficit and there is a $60 million wage gap. We acknowledge that to a certain extent, because we had asked for figures. Because it's one thing to throw out figures, it's another thing to verify those figures. And in fact, one of the issues we have been asking for is supply us with the true
list of
audit of the staff, the wage, the staff list. We've been asking for that for years, because that is another immediate way that we could show government where savings are, so we can weed out those, for a better term, ghost workers. That is also contributing to the wage bill. So a lot of things were discussed there.
Is it that there's a reluctance on the part of the government to be able to furnish you with that particular list? Or is it that it's just so cumbersome an undertaking that perhaps it's next to impossible that they'd provide you with the list of all the workers?
Well, it shouldn't be impossible. Everybody should know who they're paying if monies are coming out of. If you're an employer, wouldn't you have a list of everybody that you're paying?
Absolutely.
So it shouldn't be cumbersome enough that cannot be provided. The problem is, at one point there was a staff list. I must tell you, it was not accurate, but a number of persons had issued with it, because when that list came out, it gives details of public officers that are not for public consumption. And in fact, it went around the world and back. It is not that information should not be public, because it's a public purse that are paying us as public officers, but it's the detail that was attached to that staff list that a lot of people had objected to. In addition to that, I can tell you for a fact that the staff list was not accurate. I remember there were at least 3 magistrates' names who was not on that list, and they weren't new entrants. So the list wasn't accurate. We have been asking for that. So this is not because this administration.
I was about to say, That has been an ongoing request from the unions for years to get an accurate picture as to why the wage bill is as large as it is. My question has to do, I also see that in the letter from the financial secretary, they spoke of information that you requested. And I don't want to lose this point because it's been lost in the conversation so far. What you asked for is basically to take a look at the wages and see who falls within what income bracket. I'm assuming, as you mentioned earlier, to look at ensuring that it's not everybody taking the same amount of cut, and those who earn less will probably be taking a smaller cut if that's what's agreed upon. But the bigger picture here, if you could allow me to ask, is if you don't have a staff list, and if you don't have a differentiation between how many people are making less than 20,000 or how many people are making more than 60,000, then how do you make decisions without evidence?
Well, I can tell you, and Brother Henry can attest to the fact that they did send us a wage ban, not with specific in terms of names of persons, but list in terms of numbers of who fall within whatever bracket. So that was sent to us. Finally, we got something, and I'm grateful for the commitment that were made by the ministers and the financial secretary. So we did get that. The economists in the union, they're looking at it in terms of putting together figures so that we can come up with a proposal in order to create some social equity rather than inequity. If it is you take 10% across the board, it might create social inequities. And I will tell you, coming from the senior managers from the beginning, the association had indicated that if it is we have to take a salary cut, maybe it should be considered. It shouldn't be across the board as has been suggested, because you are then taking away the spending powers from persons who least can afford it. Not to say that I can afford it, but in fact to look, because equity comes in different form. One might say equity is take 10% from everybody, so everybody is contributing the same percentage. But then again, you might also look at equity from the point of, okay, how does that affect my spending power? How does that affect my life, my social being, my ability to maintain my family? So that it is on that basis we are looking at, if it comes down to that, then fine. But I want to tell you that it's not that we have not, from the association, have not been considering this from the beginning, because in the past cuts that were made, it was not only just increments that the senior managers lost, they also lost a percentage of one of the benefits that we get as heads of department. So we have also been contributing a little bit more. Not that I'm saying that the average public officer is not, but it was not just increment, but it was also benefit as well. So when they speak about benefit, that will directly affect members of APSSM.
So,
and we were prepared and did agree to give that up on the last occasion that it came up. But we are concerned that you're asking us to give up 10%. Well, that is the figure that is being thrown out there for 3 years, and increment for 3 years, and benefits for 3 years. And we're saying, okay, what about coming back to the table and doing some assessment after the first year, if it is we reach to that point? And then what about all the new hirings that have been done? We've been hearing about persons being taken on in contract position, being paid $6,000 a month. We've been hearing about almost every minister having an aide, a a communication expert, there are certain areas that we're saying you can't ask us to make sacrifices when, one, as we speak, we have a really top-heavy cabinet, because obviously you have to ensure that everyone is placed in a position, but how is that helping us? And remember, every cabinet member has a driver, has an aide, has a permanent secretary, has a secretary, and the list goes on. Yeah. So we're talking about people, and a number of these persons are being brought in on a contract, not following the average pay scale. They would have come in at a higher level than, but we have these people here. Why it is that we should be paying for a contractual AO, that is admin officer, when we have enough officers who are waiting for their promotion or that exists presently in the service. Yeah. So some of us are asked to make sacrifices. So some departments, I lost 2 staff members to other departments and did not receive any replacement because we're under austerity measures. But while it is, there are other ministries and other places that are bringing in their own team to work with them. And then you tell us we need to sacrifice a
Chief
percentage.
Magistrate, let me ask you a quick question here. Is there a particular timeline during which the government intends to proceed with this? Because we're looking at the financial year that's looming within the next 2.5 weeks.
Well, we were given, President Henry, we were given until the 15th to respond, because this needed to go to cabinet, and then ultimately there would have been the first House meeting as it relates to the budget. Yeah. So yes, there is a timeline. It won't meet, it would go beyond the 1st of April in terms of the debate of the budget, but there is a timeline in which they are aiming to get this done. I feel that, in fact, the timeline is too short for proper consultation, but we are doing our best. We have undertaken with the government that we will consult. They have allowed us to go and consult. And ultimately, we're hoping that in good faith, whatever it is that we bring back, they will listen and in fact try for us to come to a solution that best serves the members of the unions and the public officers and teachers. Yeah. Right. So
can I get a sense, since you were at that meeting on Thursday, you know, I don't think anyone in Belize was particularly surprised that immediately after the election, that's when this particular topic was put on the table for conversation and consultation. But from your engagement last week, do you sense openness to being able to actually negotiate whatever your members give you as a mandate collectively as the unions?
Well, the meeting was very, very cordial. It was very open. I left from there feeling good about the meeting because I felt they listened. It wasn't so much about putting those terms that we got in the letter. That letter only came about because Sister Elena from BNTU had insisted that we had gotten a 20-page correspondence before that basically would have had what the final letter, that we got. And we had asked, she had asked for the sake of the 3 unions for something to be put down that would basically summarize what it is that we were to take to our membership. Hence the reason for that letter. Okay. But at least I can say, honestly, I felt that there was an openness. The Deputy PM was clear about the fact that we're in this together. And I am just hopeful that we continue on that same path.
President, I was going to say President Henry, just so we could get him into the conversation. I know he was trying to get in a bit earlier. You have initiated your consultations. You said you were working through the weekend. Tell us a bit about how you've been reaching out to the public service members of the Public Service Union.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we had our membership meeting on Saturday, and we got our numbers were high, not as high as we would have wanted it to be, considering the topic that was being discussed. But nonetheless, we went ahead and we encouraged those who are participating to be at the next meeting, which is scheduled for a bit later on today, no? But one of the things that, of course, we were also looking at is the fact that, as Sister Fraser mentioned a while ago, you know, the issue of the top-heavy members of government, no, representatives, cabinet, and so on. And I recall a few years ago when ministers used to hold, you know, up to four different portfolios, right? And now we look at today where we have, for example, you know, Ministry of Health is only health and wellness, and that's it, right? And so it's true that, as what Sister Fraser mentioned, that, you know, that comes with all the expenses having to do with, you know, with our ministry, right? Again, we look at, you know, just public utilities and logistics. Those are, you know, so it's very concerning to us, and I think that the focus of PSU is that we need to have the government also, you know, seek to trim the fat at the top first, and then we look at the other issues of revenue enhancement, especially where we have identified numerous areas that you know, that could bring the gap closer, no? The question is whether they want to enforce those that we have identified. You know, that's another issue, and I don't think that there is a commitment to do that right now. I think that's what we are feeling now.
Talk to us a bit about the survey and what
the survey. We have tried all the means available to us. In fact, I've reached out to media houses to ask them to assist us in getting out the information. I believe that at last count, we were at a little bit north of 700 persons. That was yesterday when we had our Council of Management meeting, and we did a quick review of what we have been receiving so far. It was a little bit north of 700. I believe that today it will grow significantly because we have been doing a very aggressive exercise to get our members to know that there is a survey going on. First of all, I know that I've also reached out to the Central Information Technology Office requesting that they share the survey on the government's platform. We have reached out to WhatsApp, you know, in every way possible that we can reach out to our members and non-members, because as you know, we represent public officers, and this is not an issue for only membership, no?
Yeah.
Okay, now what bearing, if any, will the outcome of the survey have on the overall position to be taken by the PSU?
Well, that survey will essentially be considered as a PSU's mandate on how we are going to move forward. Because again, you know, the way the structure of the union is that membership is all the way at the top, and then membership decides or gives the councillor and myself the direction that they want to go. Right, and so we will have to listen to what comes out of that survey, you know, and that will be essentially the official position taken by the union.
All right. right. So we do have some more questions about the ongoing consultations and some of the feedback that you're soliciting. But what we are going to do is take a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll resume the conversation. So please stay tuned.
Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that by simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop, it increases your productivity by 26%. And adding a monitor takes it up by 35%. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience with devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands that you can rely on. With collaboration tools such as Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky, your team can stay connected and perform efficiently no matter where they are. Fulltech Systems, your trusted technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
As one of the largest cable and internet providers in Belize, CBC strives to provide our customers with the highest standards of quality, value, and service in all aspects of cable TV and internet. Monitoring our systems closely, our technicians combine creative planning and state-of-the-art technology with years of experience and training to develop and provide the most reliable and advanced cable and internet service to exceed your expectations. For CBC and our team of talented engineers, technicians, and customer service representatives, delivering less than the very best is never an option.
Currently, we're using Smart Elite VoIP calling plan. We use it inter-branch, we use it to call outside, and we also use it to call international. It's far cheaper than what we used to have before. Our equipment are new, PBX box is new. So the PBX is very good because I can call to my Sartaneja branch, I can call to my Kikaka branch, I can call to San Pedro branch, and there's no cost using the PBS. Actually right now, since we're in different locations, I can call main office from where I am at a no cost using the PBX system. I would recommend it, sure I would, especially the big enterprises who has a lot of employees. There's a lot of reduction in costs, 50% of saving. But that on a year, it's a lot of money that we're saving. Money that we could return to our members, since we give back dividend to our members.
Visit our showroom or call 670-6710 to find out how Smart's corporate plan and PBX systems can benefit your business. Consultation is free.
Both men and women are almost equally infected by the virus that causes COVID-19. However, men seem to have a higher risk of severe infection and of dying from this disease. Research is showing that men are at a higher risk of dying from COVID-19 because men are still socializing and visiting friends. Men do not frequently wash hands with soap and water. A few men do not believe the situation is that serious. Men delay visiting a doctor even when they start to have symptoms like fever, dry cough, and tiredness. Men think wearing a face mask makes them look weak or uncool. And men tend to misuse alcohol, which has a negative effect on the immune and respiratory systems. Let's protect ourselves so that we can protect our families and loved ones. Use a face mask that covers nose, mouth, and chin. Wash your hands with soap and water for at least 40 seconds, or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Practice physical distancing of at least 6 feet. Support men's health and help keep Belize safe. A message from the Pan American Health Organization, World Health Organization, the European Union, and the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
And we're back. We're continuing our conversation with the Chief Magistrate, who is also the President of the APSSM, the Association of Public Service Senior Managers, and the President of the Public Service Union, as we continue to discuss the proposed 10% salary cut and the freeze on increments and benefits as government tries to realize its savings going forward. Let's continue with the President of the PSU insofar as the ongoing discussion. I know that you've mentioned meeting over the course of the weekend, and there's another meeting that is pending for later on today. Is it your belief that perhaps government ought to be more efficient in how it goes about collecting revenue, how it goes about generating revenue, so that the proposed cut should be the very last go-to in the event that all else has been exhausted?
Right. That's essentially where the position that we are taking. Remember now that we are the ones, our public officers are the ones who actually, and hence the reason why we were asking, desperate for a number of years now, because since the possibility of some austerity measures and so on, because we are the ones who actually know the figures, work with the figures and so on. So if the government would have provided us with the true figures from when we requested it, we would have been able to give them some advice in terms of how to close that gap without going to our public officers for them to sacrifice even more than we have sacrificed in the past, no? Yeah. And that was the premise on which we were really and truly asking for the figures to be, the data to be presented to us in order for us to crunch those numbers and actually provide solid support, to the government and avoid, this whole issue of coming to public officers for their salaries and increment and allowances and so on. All of that, I believe, we believe, could have been avoided. Looking at revenue, especially the revenue coming out of the sales tax department. Those who owe significant sums, and we are talking about millions and millions of dollars, that have not been collected, and so those are the main reasons why we want to get the figures from government as quickly as possible, and the ultimate or the very last resort, because we may very well have to agree that at some point, that there's a need for a pay cut, a salary cut. But what we are saying is that right now you may be looking at proposing a 10% cut. But if you present us with those numbers and we can work those numbers and show you how you can collect more, and especially on the revenue side, because you've been focusing on the expenditure side, if we can show you how you can collect more, then perhaps we can drop that figure from 10% to 2% or 3%, or just continue the increment freeze for a period of time. And that's the reason why I believe Sister Fraser has mentioned that we had asked that we look at this thing, after 1 year and then we revisit it, right? Because that's the ability,
That's one of the questions I had in looking at what you are asking your members. And, it seems to be that part of the conversation is salary cut or increment freeze. And also, as you introduce into the conversation just shortly, perhaps shortening that 3-year period. Is that the direction that you're going, being able to get a consensus on one particular method of cost savings?
Well, there are many. There are many cost saving measures that. Let me give you an example, and I didn't want to just pick out a particular example, but at the point when in fact they were telling us we needed to cut under the past administration, we were being told we needed to cut in terms of freezing of increment and then cutting of benefits. At the same time, we had already proposed cost savings as it relates to the rental of buildings for government offices, as an example. That's just one area.
Yeah.
At the same time we're negotiating, it's the same time that in fact they took out immigration out of a building that they had to pay no rent for and put them in this big building on the northern, on Philip Golson Highway. I don't even want to imagine what the rental is for that building. We're talking about buildings in Belmopan that in fact 3-4 ministries are renting at $5,000-$6,000 a month. We have been saying for years now, why is it that government has not invested in buildings where the same rental fee that they're paying could go towards us owning our own buildings. But that also is showing us that in fact the wage bill, because of the increase in the appointment of public officers, means they need more space, which means that the wage bill is forever growing. So that a number of things, you can't be telling us to be sacrificing on the one hand and then doing something else on the other hand. It's really not fair.
Yeah, I'm sure you're aware there's great public debate over this as well. And that's because when the pandemic started last year, a lot of people, I think globally the measure is about 40% of workers either had reduced pay or reduced work hours. So, and we're talking global statistics. So when we talk about a picture where we have people who lost their jobs, others who are facing a reduced salary, they look at the public officers and say, listen, you've sat comfortably for a year. It's time for you to do your sacrifice now. How do you respond to that?
But Marlene, that is not fair, because I can tell you for a fact, at my department, we had no holiday. We worked right through the pandemic every single day. And if you or any of your news reporter had gone before the court, you would see the volume of people that we had. In fact, our workload increased during the pandemic. So that I would not subscribe to that argument any at all. And there was no extra nothing. We performed our duties, we performed extra in order to ensure, and as employees, we were exposed, our families were exposed. Talk about there was other public officers, those healthcare workers, they never stopped work. They were still working, they were doing everything and more, exposing themselves. Every disaster that happens, public officers have to be there. Every hurricane, public officers have to be there. The pandemic come, public officers had to be there. So that argument, I am not at all going to subscribe to that. Yes, I acknowledge that persons lost their job, but when it was plenty for them, it was normal for us.
Why is
I am not in any respect trying to not recognize that persons have lost their jobs. We didn't bring on the pandemic, but we had to continue working, and we're still working.
Why is it that we are averse to the idea of stiffer measures being taken, for instance? Like, we don't like the idea of a retrenchment, but perhaps if certain measures were taken previously, then we may not have been in this kind of a situation that we're facing now, when from the outside looking in, it seems to be a situation where there are just simply too many employees in government and not enough money to go around.
Well, I would be the first to say, as I said to you, we've been asking for a staff list because this is where persons are being hidden that are getting money out of the government purse who maybe are not doing the work that is being described or not there any at all. But we've been asking for that. We have recognized certain things. I hear people say, so where was APSSM or where was PSU when things were happening under the past administration? Well, I want to let them know that we were there and we were asking. And in fact, while maybe it didn't hit the media, but I can say, and I'm sure that even Marlene can speak to the fact we've gone there and we've talked about some of these issues. Maybe people just weren't paying attention because there was no pandemic. They were making their money in terms of the jobs they had. But now, in this kind of situation where the pandemic has come, now it seems as if the public officers are unreasonable because they are not prescribing or subscribing to a pay cut. But when everybody else were there, public officers have stepped up to the plate and still stepping up to the plate. So that I'm not saying we should not carry our fair share, you know. Not at all. I'm not saying that. I'm just simply saying when it is you start to compare apples with grapefruits, two different fruit. They're fruit, yes, but they're two different fruit.
Well, I can verify what you said, and that's why I asked that question earlier on, where I know that we have had different representatives from the unions over the years talk about trying to get access to the full staff list for a very long time. And it still is concerning when you think about it that a decision would be made where you don't know the full scope of those who are actually, I know we've talked about ghost workers, but if you don't have a full picture as to where all these salaries are being paid or for what job, it does make it, I think, a bit of a misinformed decision to a certain extent. But going back to the current consultations, you asked for information regarding people in different brackets, right? So in other words, those who are making a much larger salary versus those who are on the lower end of the pay scale. Paint a picture for us. I mean, when you look at the people who would be asked to sacrifice 10%, where you know it will only make the economic situation harder for their families, what are we seeing?
Well, that is why I told you from the beginning, APSSM as well as PSU, because I can tell you that the Vice President, Dean Flowers, in the consultation was echoing the same sentiment as I have in saying that we cannot disenfranchise public officers at the lower bracket. Because then you will be creating a further social inequity. So you're talking about trying to grow the economy. But then if you take away the spending power from the people who least can afford it, then it will have an adverse effect on those public officers.
Well, of course.
They're already struggling, and now it might be that those very public officers are coming from a single parent household, or that they're the only breadwinner because their partner was in the tourism industry who lost his or her job. So that we have been looking at everything. I'm not saying
where you save in one area, you may then have to pay in social programs for people who need added help. But that is the question I'm asking. What is the percentage that you've received so far? Because I know that data was requested up to yesterday, and you said you got it. You didn't get names and totals, but you got number of persons who were in the lower brackets. What are we looking at?
Well, we haven't worked it out as yet. We're in the process of doing that. Like, for instance, I can tell you that while it is PSU and BNU has started their consultation, my membership is a little smaller, so it's easier to reach. So that it is my intention to meet with them by the middle of this week, so that in fact we can have, by then I'm hoping that we are able to have the figures worked on the figures. As I tell people, my specialty is law, it's not figures. So that at the end of the day, we are depending on the talented public officers who know figures to work out what we're looking at to be able to give you a more accurate picture.
And your union, especially being head of departments, would probably be on the higher end of the bracket. So if it is a staggered approach, you use the analogy of fruits. There's a saying, I know Isanda knows this one, that we're all in the same storm but not in the same boat. So if you look at heads of department, you'd be on the higher end of the spectrum, and if you take this staggered approach, it would mean you'd probably have to take a bigger cut than those who are earning far less. Your union is open to that suggestion as well?
Well, we have been from the very beginning. Under the last austerity measures that was taken, remember I told you, while it was increment freeze, it was not just increment freeze for members of my union. In fact, we also had cut in our benefits, which would have been more than. So, and it was accepted. We understand the responsibility that we have. We recognize the role that we need to play, and we're prepared to set the necessary examples as HODs and senior managers within the public service. So how critical once it is that it's fair, we are open to what is fair, providing that all the other measures are considered before we reach to that level.
How much more information do you need? I think when you speak of things like not getting the staff list, that's one aspect. But you also talk of the new workers that have been taken on since the change in administration, and also looking at contract workers. All of these help to paint a more accurate picture as to why the wage bill is as high as it is, and how or where we would need to cut down. Are you still asking for this information, and are you hoping you'll be able to get it before you can provide adequate feedback?
Definitely, Marlene. We need all the information that it is to show. That is the only way we can make proper. We need to be true to ourselves now. Let's be honest. We need to lay everything out on the table, so that if it is that I come into something very well informed, I can make a better representation to membership, and we can come up with solutions and recommendation that is the best for the public officers and the country of Belize on a whole. But everybody has to pay their fair share. That's all we've been asking from day one. These are information that we have been asking for the longest while. I remember when it is that we were looking on the salary adjustment. In order for us to get that, we had to go looking for it, It wasn't handed to us on a platter. We had to literally, with, of course, the consent of the financial secretary, be allowed to go into Treasury and Ministry of Finance to go pull the figures. They didn't hand that to us. So we are prepared to do whatever it is we need to do in order to get where we need to get, but we have to be allowed the necessary information. It can't be that you will tell us that it is $10 you have, when in fact there is another $10 hidden somewhere else, because that has not been disclosed. Disclosure is everything, everything.
It speaks to transparency as well.
Yes.
And and just to add to Sister Fraser, what we don't want, and our membership is, keep saying this, that what we don't want is that we are sacrificing ourselves for to keep those who have been recently employed as minister aid, etc. No, we don't want to be sacrificing ourselves, our salaries, to maintain the salary of persons who, how do you put this? They are just coming into the service. As Sister Fraser mentioned a while ago, there is no immediate need for them to be in the service at this time. We already have persons who can perform those functions, over and beyond the capacity of the new persons who are coming in and are just simply being given jobs themselves. due to campaign promises and so on. No? So that is one of the reasons why we are desperately list to determine, what exactly it is that is coming from the public officers, the established public officers, and what is the amount of contract officers. And also, the fact that I recall in that last meeting, with the honorable ministers, which was the first consultation meeting, that I clearly remember when the deputy prime minister made a statement, to the fact that the solution, he wanted the solution to be homegrown. But what rang out for me was when he mentioned that it was supposed to be equitable. Right, and certainly having a 10% cut across the board is not equitable. That is equal, right? And there, of course, there's a difference, right? So if it is that it is equitable, and or they want it to be equitable, and they have said that they are taking a 10% cut, they are all the way on top of the totem pole. And so public officers, if it is that we will continue to satisfy the meaning of the word equitable, then public officers would need to be asked to take a smaller cut. But again, that is only considering that the discussion, or we reach to the point where we identify numbers that they present to us, we indeed have to take some sort of salary cut. In addition to that, the reason for the staff listing was because we identified that there are certain areas that are overstaffed and there are certain areas that are understaffed, right? And what we want to do is to try to streamline the public service as much as possible, to create a higher efficiency, right? And that is also one of the reasons why we have been asking so desperately for the staff list to be presented to us and so on. No? So, but it is unfair, to ask us to take such a high cut right now.
Now, one of the questions is to ask, how far are the unions willing to go to ensure that whatever decision is made is equitable?
Well, ultimately, that would be determined by the response of the membership. We are prepared and willing to negotiate, and that is why we have been actively taking part in the consultations, because we want to ensure that our members are with whatever decision that is taken. We might not all agree to everything that is ultimately is decided, but we need to look at what is best for the majority of our members. As I said, we are all in this together, and it must be done on an equitable basis. And once it is, you're able to convince persons that what is being done is equitable. Everything else has been done and tried. And so this is the absolute last resort. I do not believe that you'll have that kind of resistance that would lead to that unwanted eventuality, which is industrial action. We're not there. We're simply looking to see what is existing. I know you have some persons who are hard and fast. They're saying no, down the line.
Well, but some of the questions ask, what are you willing to sacrifice? Like maybe taking a figure from people as well. I saw that in the PSU survey, President Henry.
See again, you broke up a
that
little
bit. That you're asking members as well, what are they willing to sacrifice to help with the economic recovery?
Right, indeed. Because we want to be reasonable, and we have always tried to be reasonable. In fact, that is one of the pillars of negotiating. That you both of us have to give up some position that we take initially, and so we have been asking, for some feedback in terms of what it is that that public officers would be willing to give up if indeed we reached to the point where we realized to make an additional sacrifice to keep this ship afloat.
All right.
And so those numbers and those data, savvy people and statisticians look at those tomorrow after we get the last, the last amount of responses in, and that will then guide us on the way forward. No? And as Sister Fraser mentioned a while ago, that we are not there as yet with regards to taking any sort of actions. We want to avoid that as much as possible. It is not we are not taking an opposition stance on this. It's not a political matter for us, and we just want to ensure that that fairness is exercised to its maximum. No, because this country belongs to all of us, and public officers being the government being the main or the largest employer of the country, and actually holds the largest amount of those who are in the middle class. It's actually very much adverse to if it is that we have to reduce our spending power. The entire country, including the private sector, would suffer greatly. We would then be reduced to only looking at purchasing food, for example, just to keep to sustain our families. Other businesses, would suffer because we'll be focusing only on trying to ensure that we put food on the table for family members. Yeah. And so the private sector also has to be careful when when they talk about the public officers to take these big cuts. They will suffer from that very cut that they are requesting us of us to take.
So as we wrap up our conversation with you guys this morning, I want to segue to another topic, and this is directed to the president of the APSSM. Chief Magistrate, can you give us an update as to the Dr. Manza situation? I know that has been an issue that is close to you as the head of the APSSM. Where are we with that particular issue of the Director of Health Services?
Unfortunately, no way. He has been written a show cause why actions for major misconduct should not be taken against him. I can share with you that I wrote to the Minister of Health, the Minister of the Public Service, and their respective CEOs for us to try to come and solve this issue. This issue has been played out in the media for far too long, and it's really not heading for, it's not looking good. And it's really, I can see it heading in a direction that I don't feel that it should be. Even if at the beginning, the ministry did not know that Dr. Manzanero was a part of a union. They knew, they became aware at some point, and not at any point in time, despite the fact that I have reached out, have they reached out to try to solve this problem. In fact, I was quite disappointed when I heard the minister, and this has been played universally now, that he was saying, why are you worrying so much about him? If you are worrying about him so much, why not give him a job? I want to emphasize again, Dr. Manzanero has a job. He is the appointed Commission Director of Health Services. And it is just, I don't know. I've heard all kinds of comments. They've taken personal shots at me to say, where was I in relation to things that happened in the past? And what is unfortunate is that APSSM took stand as it relates to certain things that happened. They mentioned the situation with Dr. Pitts. I want to inform the general public that Dr. Pitts was a member of APSSM at the time, in fact, part of the executive. He took a certain stand, and we supported the stand that he took. But as it relates to Dr. Manzanero, he reached out. He reached out to us, and we are only doing what it is that we should do. We are legally bound to do, which is make representation on his behalf. It has nothing to do with Marvin Manzanero. It has to do with the position of the Director of Health Services. And I would think that cooler heads would have prevailed, and some attempts would have made to try to solve this matter one way or the other. But I can say to the public that I reached out, and to date I have not gotten a response, so that I am going to take it back to membership so that a decision can be made as to where we go from here, right? I don't act on my own. I act as the president of APSSM with clear directions given to me by the membership of the Association of Public Service Senior Managers. So, Isani, we're nowhere. He has been told to continue going to work. I am not sure where it is they have him. I know that he was locked out of his office. So I know that. I don't know what they have him doing, but in any event, he has been advised to go to work, which is what, as far as I know, he's doing. I think they're trying to do everything to frustrate him. So I asked,
to force a resignation. To force a resignation, you mean?
Maybe that is what they are trying to accomplish. But I've asked, just like I've asked other members, I'm asking the public as well to encourage him. This is not about him. I ask people not to get personal. This is a principled position. And if it is that happens to him, it can happen to anyone and any member that is within the APSSM organization.
All right.
So that is the latest update. He will and have been advised how to answer to that show cause letter, and we will see where it goes from there. Obviously, we will ensure that he has representation when and if this matter reaches the Public Service Commission.
All right, well, thank you guys for having joined us this morning. We wish you all the best. We're going to take our commercial break now, and when we return, it's to discuss the issues that women are faced with on a daily basis as we go through Women's Month. Stay tuned.
Our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us. Then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something. The Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. Stronger together. The Belize Bank. Our country. Your bank. Love is a connection that should last forever. This February, NextGen is sharing the love with amazing promo deals for everyone. Reconnect or install with NextGen for free. Sign up for our affordable cable and high-speed internet plans and get 1 month free on your acquired service. But that's not all. New and reconnecting customers can now receive 1 month free MyTV subscription when you sign up with us anytime in February. Some restrictions apply. For more information on our promotions and services, contact us at 0800-222-5388 or via our social media platforms. NextGen, powered by Central TV and Internet.
Are you traveling? Effective January 26, all passengers traveling internationally will need to get tested no more than 3 days before you travel to the United States, and show your negative result to the airline before you board your flight. Here at Caring Hands Clinic in San Pedro, we administer the antigen test, frequently referred to as a rapid test. Our products are CDC compliant and FDA approved. Testing has never been this easy. With our highly certified and licensed medical staff, we provide you with an accurate test result in minutes, making your experience fast, safe, and easy. To book your appointments today, contact us on any of our hotlines at 671-TEST or 672-TEST, 226-FAST, or our Vonage line at 305-420-6203. Book your appointments online at www.belizecovidtest.com. Caring Hands Clinic Antigen Test Center. We're pleased to serve you.
Reduce your risk of viral illness like the flu or the coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water or with an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing or sneezing with a tissue. Throw away, then wash hands immediately. Avoid close contact with anyone who has the cold or flu-like symptoms. If you become ill, please visit your doctor or nearest health center and share your travel history. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health.
Wow. Oh my God, she drunk. No hurry, I got this. My goodness. Oh my gosh, it's the artist.
Being the hardest. The artist. But you had way more than 2 drinks tonight, love, which is a legal limit to drive. What about you? Can you drive?
Well, I was drinking soft drink all night, so I can drive her home. Thanks, Bree. Of course, Tricia. You know I got you. You're my girl.
That's what I like to see. Friends don't let friends drive drunk, because you can't replay in a real life. Stig says so. Can't replay in a real life.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
Welcome back. We're kicking off our third and final conversation this morning on the heels of International Women's Day, which was celebrated yesterday, March 8th. We have joining us this morning the Executive Director of the Belize Family Life Association, Joan Burks-Skeen. And we also have with us Social Development Consultant, Judith Alpuche. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning. All right.
All right. So, issues that women are faced with, they have the issues of the workplace dynamics. We also have those for expected caregivers and those who are going through physical abuse. Let's begin by talking about the issue of physical abuse, for instance. Let's start there, and then we can flesh out to the other areas that we want to discuss this morning. Can we begin with you, Ms. Alpucha, as a former CEO of Social Transformation and Human Development?
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and happy Women's Month to all the Belizean women, or women in Belize, I should say. Yes, the issue of domestic violence, gender-based violence on a whole, continues to be a huge issue for women worldwide, and certainly Belize is no exception to that. We are well aware of some of the horrific cases that have really come to light in terms of women being badly injured, or women losing their lives even, or in some instances feeling that they have no choice but to harm others in acts of self-defense. And it continues to be an ongoing issue. I feel that it's one of the last bastions, really, of human rights violations in Belize. And the COVID-19 pandemic, we're seeing worldwide that it has intensified the issue of family violence, domestic violence, as well as child abuse. And often those two things are so interconnected. Worldwide, and certainly in Belize, when we have these lockdowns, women, children, but let's focus on women. Women are locked down with their abusers in very stressful situations. Just the fact that people's movements are limited, are restricted. You're in small spaces oftentimes, because many of us are not living in these, luxurious mansions with amenities. We're living in family homes, and sometimes in very cramped conditions where there's already doubling and tripling, where you are locked down with people and you can't, your abuser, you can't move. Add on top of that the stress of just, the health crisis on a whole, and people being very concerned about whether or not they're going to contract this deadly disease, as well as the economic situations that have been brought on by the pandemic. And it's been a very toxic mix. And so, worldwide, and certainly in Belize, we've been talking about how do you ensure that women still get the kind of care and protection that they need. And I know that the government had done outreaches in publishing numbers for child abuse. How do you get in contact with the system, even under lockdown situations? The National Women's Commission and the Women's Department and other NGOs had done similar education and talk about how you can get services. I know that under the Spotlight Initiative, and Joan, perhaps you talk more about this, they had done outreach clinics once the lockdowns were over that are critical, because although you're taking legal services and you're taking SNR services and BFLA and others did a yeoman's job in making sure that these services, critical services, still reach women, because it's also interconnected. And so we've seen an intensification of issues under domestic violence and child abuse due to COVID.
Yeah, I want to ask, given the experience that both of you have in understanding the depths of the problem that we have with domestic violence, specifically against women in our society, I mean, what would you say, how much is happening that hasn't been reported? Because if I'm in an abusive relationship and I have no reason to leave home, most likely my reports haven't even been made.
During regular times, even before COVID, you had a fair amount of underreporting, because domestic violence is just such a complex and multifaceted issue, and I fear that under COVID conditions, we are at even more of a disadvantage to really understand the depths of underreporting. My instinct would be, and just the logic would be, that there would be even greater underreporting, simply because of the issues of access to services also. If you're locked down in a little small house, how do you even get the opportunity to report and reach out for help? So I think that, there's even, I would hazard a guess, an educated guess, that there's even more underreporting than before, which is certainly alarming because the levels were already high.
Yeah. Let's broaden the conversation here as well, because we're looking at this in the context of the challenges that women face, perhaps either amplified by the pandemic or becoming an additional challenge because of the pandemic. Let's talk about women at work and what the pandemic has brought to light. One that I know I hear a lot is about the burden of managing households and responsibilities while working from home and teaching the children as well. What about this?
Okay, I'll jump in here. Good morning and thanks again. During this pandemic, women have been tossed into roles that have really put them in a position where they're expected to do so much with so little. Women are now being expected to work from home, and with some companies, when they log in, they must remain on whether it's via whatever platform they're logged on, they're expected to be there. They're now functioning as caregivers, because caregiver for probably an ailing family member where pre-COVID, they were able to get somebody in to provide that care. Now, because they're at home with limited resources, they are expected to carry out that role as well as the role as caregivers for smaller children who pre-COVID, they might have taken them to a daycare or actually have somebody coming in and providing that kind of service. They're also expected to be teachers in their homes, as well as carry out those domestic responsibilities that are also placed on them. And for those who are at home, like Ms. Alpuche mentioned, at home, locked up with a partner, so therefore they're expected also to provide those levels of intimacy, as well as being faced with the financial challenges of probably doing the same or even more with maybe 50% or less than 50% of the financial resources that they've had before COVID. So all that is being put in a capsule for women. And I want to say not only women as we know, but also younger girls are being faced with some of these same challenges, because we find that not only women as we refer to, but we have young girls who are in relationships that are faced with some of these same challenges. And so when we look at women from within the workplace and having to perform those duties at home, it's almost that the expectation or expectations of these women triple. It's almost that they're expected to be miracle workers, which then, of course, with all this being placed on them, then lead or expose them or increase their risk for violence, because at the end of the day, we're only human. And so as
we take into consideration the impact of COVID and the impact of this new environment within which we're expected to perform, then is overwhelming for many women, for many people, which then makes it even more critical for us to be able to address some of these issues that not that we failed to address in the past, but we did not invest as much as we should have.
Now, it's also, I mean, I know I'm racing through the different issues. We talked about domestic violence, the increased load on women, and how does Belize fit in when it comes to unemployment for women?
Unemployment for women was always an issue. There's this paradox in that, we talk about more women participating or more females participating in the education system at secondary and tertiary level. At primary level, we're more or less equal male to female, but when you get to secondary and tertiary, you're seeing that the males are dropping out more than females. But on the other side of that, the paradox of that is that women's unemployment rate has always been higher than men. I was looking at some statistics the other day and some of the data. So even if I look at it pre-COVID, for instance, some of the data jumped out at me for the period, that quarter ending in September 2019, where you saw that there was a spike in unemployment. So our employment rates went up to 10%. There were new jobs created. But you still had a spike in unemployment, so people were losing their jobs at a more rapid rate. And there were more women entering the workforce at that point in time, but yet their unemployment rate at that same point was at 15%. So the average, the overall is at 10, and then women are at 15%, and that has always been that paradox. And so now you're having an intensification of unemployment, and women are losing their jobs. So that divide is, or the stressors on women have been multiplied, really. And a part of it overall is because although women are going to school at secondary and tertiary levels at higher rates, they're still going into traditional areas. We don't, so there's this push towards getting girls into STEM, into science, technology, engineering, math, or even STEAM, and the A in there stands for art. So exploring that creative side instead of the more traditional areas. I think one of the positive things about COVID that I've seen, and I would really want to, we really do need to do some studies and data on this, is just the amount of entrepreneurship that it has sparked, so you do see a lot of women also doing their own thing, using technology, being creative, in what they're doing, and that's encouraging in one sense, but that's still in the informal economy. So we really have to think this through as we go into a kind of post-COVID era. How do we ensure that women who are already in the informal sector, how do we provide additional protections for them? What role can women play in rebuilding our economy in new ways? Because that's what we would need to do, no? Because I mean, it stands to reason, because you have a collapse of the tourism market, and a fair amount of women were employed there, both formally and informally. If you think about the cruise ships and the hair braiders and a lot of women who made their income from that perspective, no? So there really has to be a gendered approach to rebuilding our economy, or what the new post-COVID economy will look like, to ensure that women, this paradox that exists where women are more educated but less employed, where women are more highly represented in the informal sector, that we can address those issues.
So talk to us about their ability to be able to navigate the workplace and be able to move up in rank, because we're still seeing where perhaps at the head of big companies and other organizations, it's very much a male territory, so to speak. Share with us the situation in terms of women in Belize being able to navigate in that world.
That is always an interesting conversation, because Ms. Alpucha mentioned that, yes, we have more females having access to higher education, but education does not always guarantee the employment at the level at which your qualifications, what you have access, could fairly earn you. And again, as was mentioned, we find that the higher women climb in terms of the employment ladder, the scorecards, the measuring sticks and all that being used for women, there's an imbalance, because the expectations, and many women will tell you that it's the way people are just sitting waiting for them to fail, and all that they have to do to reach that higher rank. And so when we talk about how do we create an environment with more balance and for women to have equal opportunities, that we look at regardless of what the position is, that women are given that opportunity to sit in that chair, to prove that they can get the job done. Yeah. However, for many women, they will tell you, especially those who have reached to some of these high-ranking positions, it's not easy. And every day it's a challenge. There is this level of disrespect at times. Sometimes you find the whole issue of discrimination just because of being a woman, the level of discriminatory comments, even when and I can speak from my own experience, sometimes you're sitting in a room and some of the comments that would being made, and you're among what you think professionals. So until we are able to create those environments where we feel that it's in their environments of equal opportunities and we're treated as equals when it comes to employment opportunities, there will always be this question: how do we as women navigate such environments?
If I might add one thing, I always remember, just to add to what Joan is saying, I always remember, and I was watching an interview with a woman who was very accomplished. They were interviewing a woman who was very accomplished, and they were talking about breaking the glass ceiling using that. And the interviewer asked something that I thought was very insightful. And the interviewer, who was a woman, asked her, and which shard cut the deepest? Which tells you that there's always a price to pay for women, even when we break those so-called glass ceilings, when we excel beyond, what we're expected. And another element to what John is saying is that sexual harassment is alive and well. And that is something that we really need to deal with within our society. It's something very difficult. Yeah. We have had laws on the books for a long, long time. but they're not used, you know, and it's a part of education. It's also a part of, I believe, perhaps we need to put in proper guidance, etc. We need to strengthen the laws to be more effective and more. And I hardly ever say that. You know, I always say we have good laws and it's about implementation. But I think in this particular case, in my humble, non-legal opinion, the laws seem to need some strengthening so that they're more useful.
But it's also cultural. It's
cultural, definitely.
It's that early messaging that we allow to take place, whether at home or sometimes in the school environment, or I should say reinforced sometimes in the school environment. And so when we talked on a number of issues that women may be facing in today's world, in 2021, let's look at it from this perspective. When we look at how women have taken their place in Belize, let's talk about some of the places that we can be proud of and some of the places that we know we need to really do some serious work.
You want to go, Joan?
Joan?
Okay. Some of the places that we have taken.
Yeah.
I feel that when it comes to the social health of our societies, there's always the face of women. I think that this, to a certain extent, the caring nature of women, we tend to gravitate towards those
helping
situations, those type of environments. I do believe, though, that we can do much more if we strengthen that sisterhood, if I may call it that, when it comes to certain issues. For example, we have been fighting for years to address the issue of gender-based violence. And yes, we always go back to the legal environment within which we operate. I think today more than ever, we have so many females as attorneys. We have a number of females who have been climbing within the judiciary, within the legislative environment. Yet some of the same laws that Ms. Alcuche made mention to earlier, we haven't been able to make a dent in terms of revising these laws that can help women to move or to protect women from some of these ills, such as gender-based violence. I believe that there have been opportunities for us as women to get out there, being in the forefront, demanding certain things. We talk about the issue of sexual harassment within the workplace. We have, I believe that we've had opportunities where we can say zero tolerance and be able to call out individuals. There may be consequences, but together we can do certain things. When we look in the education sector, for example, now more than ever, we have so many females in the education system. I remember when I was in school, we had so many males who were male teachers. Now male teachers are absent from the classroom. It's now more females. And I feel that that is an opportunity also where we should be able to make a difference. Because yes, we talk about certain things are cultural, but learning begins in the classroom. And if within the classroom we are saying, no, we will not accept it. We will not accept it as a norm. That difference could be made there.
Yeah, that's so true.
Right.
All right. And for you, Judith?
Yeah, I certainly, women have contributed to every single aspect of this society. And so in terms of, and we've had many firsts that we celebrate, but there are certain areas I think where there needs to be more of a balance, and certainly STEM is one of them. And as I talked about before, I'm so pleased to see so many young women engineers going into that area. That gives me a lot of hope. And in terms of women's political participation, women's as elected officials, that's an area where we really do need to work on. We're still not at a level. The guidance is that it should be around 40%. With the last election and having one more woman at the table, we have 14%, 13%, if my math is correct. So we're under that, and consistently Belize gets a low score on that. But yet women are the powerhouses behind the political parties in terms of the people doing the work. So we really do need to be at the table. And it's not an issue of displacement. I think we really do need to get that very clear. It's just that we need that balance. And research after research all over the world shows that when you have a more equal participation from women in companies where there are more, there's a balance with male and female board members, the company does better. In countries where there is more of a balance in terms of elected officials, there is more even sustainable national development. Because truly, although we're talking about issues that impact more on women, every national development issue is a woman's issue. Every national development issue is a woman's issue. Because we make up 50% of the population. And it's so important for both sides, both views to be at the table. So I'm a big believer in gender balance. Not to displacement at all. It is important but it is critically important if we're to have sustainable development for women to be at the table, and for us to hear all the voices of women, voices of all women from all walks of life. Because we often look at to say, okay, well, women are more educated, there are women CEOs, there are women senators, etc. So maybe women at the middle class or women who are more educated are doing fairly well, but it is the women of the lower socioeconomic level that we really do need, and women who are in other marginalized groups that we really have to pay attention to, because the statistics show you time after time, overall women earn less than men, in Belize. Overall, when you look at the global numbers. So it's not only to look at it from women, but also to dig down deeper to disaggregate that group and look at also at the groups of women that are more marginalized, that are more at risk, and how do you work on issues to address what they are facing, their realities.
Absolutely.
So we really do need data to do that.
I want to also add that I believe even in engaging women and yes, bringing women to the table, it must not be done in a tokenistic kind of way.
Absolutely.
Right? Because yes, and even in terms of when we look at our commitment within the international arena, in terms of having 40% of women being within the political, that making sure that we achieve that. It's not only, yes, we have women on our slate or on the slate, but how we create opportunities for these women when they get up to Belmopan or when they're sitting at their town councils or city councils, to make the difference and to engage them at every level. It's not just that, you know what, no, yes, we have fulfilled that part of it, so we have 50%, 40% of women. But then, what do we do as a nation to make sure then that they are at the decision-making table, they are engaged and involved at every aspect of governance?
Yeah. Absolutely critical point. And I think, you know, when we look at where we see the progress, and we must acknowledge there's been some progress for women in Belize, it's also now ensuring that it doesn't just become that tokenism that you speak of, that the standards that women are judged by, that when women enter political races, they're given a fair shot and not held to different standards than their male counterparts, that they're paid equally, that they're given equal responsibility as well and weight in their decision making. So I think these are all really critical points when you talk especially about women in leadership, and then looking at the social issues that have plagued. I know when we talk gender-based violence, every time we hear somebody say, well, men get, you know, beaten too. That's true. Yeah. But the majority are women.
The vast majority. And I think one of the important points too is that, you know, we need to engage men.
Yeah.
Especially on these issues, because a lot of the issues that women face, the gender-based violence, etc., it's fueled by patriarchal issues. It's fueled by a toxic sense of what it means to be a man. And we really do need men to engage as partners in this, you know, men who have a good sense of themselves, who understand what it means to be a partner, what it means to participate as a parent with shared parental responsibility, men that don't freak out about things like changing the nappies, changing the diapers, etc. Men that don't sit in a meeting and mansplain, because I can't tell you how many times, even as a woman in an executive position, I've been mansplained, you know, in a meeting with men. So we really do need men to engage. This is the only way. Yes, we definitely have to continue working on women's empowerment issues, but we need men as allies, because it's not about displacement. It's not about, you know, having the pendulum swing in the next direction, because that is not sustainable development. That is not useful. It is about leveling the playing field so that every man, woman, girl, boy can get what they need, the opportunities that they need to thrive and to fulfill their full potential. That's at the core what it is. That we're trying to accomplish with these women empowerment issues.
Well, we're running out of time completely, so I'll give you a chance to complete one sentence only to leave on a positive and optimistic note. Yesterday, as International Women's Day, one of the themes was talking about choose to challenge. What's your choose to challenge statement as we close off for today?
I already said a mouthful. I choose to challenge these patriarchal values that are keeping us from really achieving full, sustainable, people-centered development.
All right, awesome. And you, Joan?
I choose to challenge this view that the best person to do the job is a man.
All right.
There are women who have done great work in Belize and in the world, and so I continue to challenge that notion that only a man can do certain things.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being a part of our conversation for today. We appreciate it, and of course, stay safe.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take our final break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap it up. So please stay tuned.
The
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Hola, Tony.
Hey, Kevin, ¿qué onda? ¿Qué pasa?
Nada, le vine a buscar porque necesito comprar más mercancías de vasos y platos desechables para mi tienda de comestible. Me estoy quedando sin esas cosas.
No, hombre, fíjate que desde el 15 de abril no puedo importar nada de eso. Y se me acaba de terminar todo lo que tenía hace como 3 semanas.
Oye, pero nunca has estado sin esas cosas. ¿Qué está pasando?
Mira esto. Esta es la nueva ley que prohíbe todo el uso de plásticos no reutilizables. Esos son vasos, platos, cucharas, tenedores, todo eso. Desde 15 de abril de este año no he podido importar nada de eso. A partir del 15 de enero del 2021 nadie puede fabricarlo. 15 de abril 2021 nadie lo puede vender. Y a partir del 14 de julio del 2021 si alguien te agarra con eso, te multan.
Híjole, no sabía eso. Necesito cambiar algunas cosas. Les diré a mis clientes por qué esas cosas ya no están disponibles. Gracias, Antonio.
Así es, cuídate, man.
If we are only as strong as our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us, then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something. The Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. We are stronger together. The Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
It's a fact that you can access unlimited services with Smart. Tired of being measured or cut off when you need to be connected? It's a fact that when you sign up for Smart's Plus plan, you get unlimited talk, text, and unlimited data. And it's a fact that you can sign up with your group of up to 5 members for Smart's Share plans and up to 40 members for Smart's Enterprise plans for unlimited talk, text, and data. Smart has the true unlimited plans. That's a fact. Be smart and live smart.
And we're back.
Quite an interesting conversation we had there in the final segment,
Yeah.
in terms of women's issues and how far women have come and
Yeah.
the achievements of women in the context of commemorating Women's Month.
You know, and I do thank Judith and Joan for joining us and being able to talk about both the challenges and some of the opportunities for growth that we have seen. When you talk about, and they've both been human rights advocates for so long, so I think they know very well just the amount of growth that we've seen in terms of gender equality, but we do have a long way to go. And I do love the point that it is so critical that when we talk about women empowerment or gender equality, that we have to reach the point where men are acknowledged as a part of this journey as well. I was joking with you, you know, you have your daughter and you have hopes and dreams for the world that she'll live in. I'm sure that adds a brand new perspective for you as a man in today's society.
Well, I've always been open to the idea that, you know, women should be given the equal opportunities to be able to achieve some of the things that men are also allowed to in our society be able to achieve. And so if I look at what the potentials are for my daughter, and I look at what the potentials are for my son, they should be measured equally in terms of what is being offered to them.
And that's all we keep on working towards. So thank you to the ladies for being a part of that conversation. And then, of course, we want to say thank you to the representatives of the APSSM, as well as the PSU, the Public Service Union, and the Association of Public Service Senior Managers for joining us. to talk about the ongoing consultation for the proposed salary cuts and increment freezes. As we said, it's at the consultation phase. So right now we know the BNTU and the PSU are issuing surveys to their members so that they can get some feedback. They also have some follow-up meetings that will take place. And the APSSM, because it's a small organization, they're doing that direct feedback. As they informed us this morning, March 15th is when they expect to have some sort of response for the government as we try to figure out, or as the government tries to figure out how they will be able to cut down on the expense of the wage bill, but of course in consultation with the unions.
Yeah.
So we'll have more on this in our newscast tonight at 6 p.m., but that's it for us here at Open Your Eyes. If you want to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. Of course, you can find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYEBelize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
Start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.